A genre defined popularly as a type of music incorporating elements of rhythm and blues and gospel music, popularized by African Americans, characterized by an emphasis on vocals and an impassioned improvisatory delivery. Soul music. My name is Prianon Shahid, and I'm discussing the development of soul music over the years in Philadelphia, the genre that dominated stations throughout America for over 20 years. Now, there were hundreds of different labels around the country focused on the specific genre of soul. Motown, Stax, and in Philadelphia, PIR, or Philadelphia International Records, a known label whose style of 70s soul has categorized them as the Philadelphia sound. Back in the 40s and 50s, soul wasn't all that popular. The diverse African American population of Philadelphia created a new rhythm and blues style that was formed from jazz, blues, and gospel music. The term rhythm and blues was used to describe what people called jump bands and small vocal groups called doo-wop. The considerable amount of popularity with younger white people led to the direct creation of rock and roll with artists like Chuck Berry, Bo Diddley, Little Richard, and Jerry Lee Lewis. With the creation of more genres like soul and funk, the recording industry eventually began to group the entire category as R&B. Philadelphia continued to lead the industry in this genre of music, but by the early 1960s, what people considered as the rhythm and blues era came to an end. Many African Americans continued their role in this style, but most others moved into rock and roll or began to develop new styles. Labels would later develop a stronger focus towards rock and roll and what people would call white pop music. At the time, Cameo Parkway Records was Philadelphia's biggest record company, whose artists were prevalent in the pop charts. Although their juggernaut of a company had a few African American artists, almost all of their staff and musicians were predominantly white, and their brand as a whole completely neglected the genre of soul. Years later, smaller labels started popping up throughout the city, like Arthon and Arctic. People described them as a training ground for young and growing artists. Of those artists were two genre-defining artists, Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff. At age 20, Kenny found himself in the same elevator at the studio with 19-year-old Huff. They described their relationship as being drawn to each other like magnets. Pianist Huff was often depicted as more of a strong but quiet partner, while Gamble, on the other hand, was illustrated as cryptic and, regularly a more obtuse, intuitive person. Now these two were scattering around Philadelphia, hustling the music scene with Tom Bell from Cameo Records. They eventually began to write songs with each other in the mid-60s with various other artists like the OJs, Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, Lou Rawls, The Third Degrees, and Billy Paul. Their skill and their demand for respect has given them a reputable collection of songs, and together they created a new genre of pop soul, Philadelphia soul. Described as adding sweeping strings, seductive horns, and lush arrangements to deep rhythms. As a result, it became a much smoother and even slicker soul of the late 60s. But the vocals remained as soulful as any previous form of R&B. Kenneth, Leon, and Bell, over 50 years now, has created what is now a company that has written over 3,000 songs, with 15 gold singles and 22 gold albums. Over the years before, Gamble and Huff released a number of singles, including Cowboy Girls and Only the Strong Survive, one of the earliest songs to what is now referred as the Philly sound. Gamble recalls sitting with Huff upright on his piano in his office with the tape recording rolling, saying that songs could take all day to 10 or 15 minutes. He states that the best ones usually took about 15 minutes. Shortly after these releases in 1971, Gamble and Huff realized that they didn't just want to be writers and producers of songs that were only occasionally hits. With the money that Columbia Records gave to break into the black music market and another sum of money from a number of albums, they created a new label, Philadelphia International Records, or PIR. By this time, Bell had moved on to produce for another local group, the Stylistics, with another record label. His departure left Gamble and Huff on the helm of Philadelphia International Records. Now, the recording studio was soon able to secure a distribution deal with CBS Records and was able to locate a headquarters on South Broad Street, formerly the Cameo Parkway building. It ceased operations in the late 1960s and was purchased by PIR. Their company before, XL Records, was soon renamed Gamble Records in '72 and then flipped into a subsidiary of Philadelphia International as the Sound of Philadelphia Records, along with the Golden Fleece in '75. Shortly after, an accusation of exchanging money for airplay hit the label. Although they protested, Kenny was fined and the charges were dropped on Huff. This was only a negligible setback because what is now a large collection of songs known for featuring socially conscious lyrics with messages of unity and love. This record company quickly became one of the nation's most successful record companies in the country. During the creation of this label, the Vietnam War was raging on. African Americans were becoming a benign neglect, and though a disproportionate number of them were coming back from Vietnam in body bags and addicted to drugs, Gamble and Huff responded with two songs, I'll Always Love My Mama and Family Reunion, which reminded America not to allow ourselves to be defined, but that we must define and articulate our own experience. They said that with all the sadness and confusion about the war, they needed to bring something that would bring people together. The creation of this label led to the prevalence of the Philly sound throughout America during the '70s. The continued success led to songs like Me and Mrs. Jones reaching #1 on both the R&B and pop charts, and Soul Train, which was selected as the Sound of Philadelphia's television theme song. Love Train was their third single from the album Backstabbers, released in '72, and by early 1973, the song hit #1 on pop and R&B charts, going on to sell 1 million singles. Like many other writers and arrangers, Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff did not write and produce solely for the Philadelphia International label, but also for other artists, including the Spinners and Blue Magic on Atlantic, First Choice and the Delphonics on Philly Groove, the Persuaders on Atco, Eddie Kendricks on Tamla, the Temptations on Atlantic, the Love Committee on Goldmine, and they have strongly influenced David Bowie for his Young Americans album. Claiming they had a formula, Gamble said that all you need to take is 3 or 4 songs with social messages, 3 or 4 songs that were only dance, party songs, and finally 3 or 4 songs that were lush ballad love songs. He says that he always tried to write songs that people would relate to for years to come, and not for people to listen to a couple of times and throw away. The record company was largely based on Motown from Detroit, but claimed to have a different message. It attempted to distinguish itself as a black-owned company that, unlike Motown, is a company that's going to put politics into its music. He explains soul music as pouring out your feelings, whether it's something that you yourself have actually gone through or if it's a friend of yours. As the decade quickly began to end, so did soul as a popular style. Other genres began to take hold and gain quick popularity, including funk, disco, and a new booming form of urban music, rap. The decline of Philadelphia International Records in the early 80s, one of the greatest soul labels, signaled the end of the soul era. With one last triumph in 1979 with the single Ain't No Stoppin' Us Now, Philadelphia International Records became completely inoperative and finally shut down in 2001. As of 2007, Sony Music Entertainment possesses all rights to the Philadelphia International Records music catalog. 40 years later, Leon Huff and Kenneth Gamble are still together, continuing to write songs with each other. Huff staying close to both his family and his piano, while Gamble's major focus is giving back to his neighborhood and doing all different types of charitable work. Occasionally producing songs, their primary concern is now managing the entire Philadelphia International Records catalog. 40 years after its creation, Gamble and Huff created the digital radio station, TSOP, or the Sound of Philadelphia Soul Radio. Its sole purpose is to provide their listeners with the popular Philly sound. Their influence has forever changed the course of American music. Soon after, a fire was deliberately set to the PIR building by a man who was intoxicated by alcohol 4 times the legal limit of driving a vehicle. Early 2010, the duo expressed their outrage and sorrow from seeing the iconic birthplace of Philly soul music ravaged early Sunday morning by a fire termed suspicious by officials. Gamble and Huff have vowed to rebuild their home of 40 years. A major tourist attraction were Michael Jackson, Teddy Pendergrass, Patti LaBelle, the OJs, Lou Rawls, Chubby Checker, and dozens more created worldwide smash hits. Gamble and Huff consider it a blessing that the third floor recording studio, where countless hit songs were made, suffered from the least amount of damage. Now, the Philly sound was soon replaced with neo-soul, which was described as a combination of R&B, hip-hop, jazz, and soul music, popularized in the 90s by groups like The Roots, who made albums such as Do You Want More? Question mark, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point, question mark, exclamation point, and Things Fall Apart. Their popularity has kept them going for almost 30 years now. Other artists like Maxwell made chart-topping albums like Now, and have done extremely well since the late 90s. But with the prime of neo-soul passing in the early 2000s, many artists have been fairly quiet and have been outshined by modern R&B artists. From the Jackson 5 to MFSB, Philadelphia's influence on such a large genre of music has affected millions around the world, and is still played today with artists like the OJs, averaging about 500,000 listeners a month. Still together today, the OJs have been together for a little under 60 years now. Being fortunate enough to still exist, most artists from this period have now passed away, like artists such as Billy Paul and Lou Rawls. Over 3,000 songs in 35 years, including gold and platinum records, with albums like Love Is a Message by MFSB and International by the Third Degrees. They have had over 70 #1 hits on both the pop and R&B charts. Even today, soul actually isn't all that popular. Today, I have a guest with me who can tell you all about it, Rudy Shahid. He is also my lovely cameraman. Yeah, right? Handshake. So let's start with our first question. What's your opinion on soul?
What is soul?
Okay. In your opinion, who is the best soul artist?
I don't know.
So you're useless. You can go back now. Now, from this interview, we learned that while still semi-popular, soul music isn't as prevalent as it was before. My 10-year-old brother clearly knows nothing about soul because of how young he is, you know? He's more exposed to genres like pop and hip-hop. This lack of exposure to this genre-defining brand of music can be considered a shame. With songs like Me and Mrs. Jones by Billy Paul and The Soul Train by MSSD, this influential genre of music can be considered one of the most important eras of our time. We are constantly reminded by Gamble and Huff to create children with wisdom in their heads, put there by mothers and fathers and in an extended community, who once again stood ready to make sure that the next generation would not only survive, but endure. Thank you for listening to my short podcast. My name is Prianon Shahid, and I'll hopefully be able to do this again sometime soon.